All right, guys, you know why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
You know exactly why we're here. Frank
Yep.
Reich is the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, and this brings up two separate conversations to me in my mind.
Sure.
So I guess we can have those two separate conversations. On one hand, if you just look at this hire in a vacuum, he's the first ever head coach that the Carolina Panthers have ever had that's had an offensive background. Sure. Dom Capers, George Seifert, John Fox, Ron Rivera, all former defensive coordinators. Matt Rule was nothing. He was just basically, kind of played a little bit of football. College, and I kind of rose my way up the ranks. I did a little bit of everything.
Chris, we can rehash this, but you can't put toothpaste, back in the tube.
Matt Rule is kind of more of the CEO guy. He wasn't offense or defense. He was just the CEO. And then so now you have Frank Reich and an organization that's kind of built their name, their brand on stingy defense, running the ball, now has a chance to have a different look after 28 years. In a vacuum, without any other things happening, I like it.
Yeah. I'm
down for it. It's a fresh restart for the Carolina Panthers.
I agree with you on that. If you look at his coaching resume from this time, he was with the Philadelphia Eagles. They won a Super Bowl with him as an offensive coordinator, and he had success in Indianapolis for the most part. It's not his fault that Andrew Luck decided to retire, and they have this revolving door of new starting quarterbacks every year. But in his 4 full seasons as head coach, he had 3 winning seasons, and he had another season where he went 7-9 or something along those lines. So he's not. I think in a vacuum, like I said, it's a good hire, and he does have ties to the Carolina Panthers. He was the first quarterback in this franchise's history.
Through the first touchdown pass and all that.
First touchdown pass, all those things. And from my understanding, he actually lives off-season in the area. I think his brother's the head coach at Wingate. He's been there for over 20 years. So he has ties to the area, too. And again, I think he has proven record as a head coach. So in a vacuum, I think it's a good hire.
His daughter actually got hired in the marketing department at the Panthers.
Right. That's right.
and that came out a couple of weeks ago, and some people were trying to make the connections like, does this mean Frank Reich is going to be the head coach? And she was like, I applied for this job, guys, before he got fired from Indy. So thanks, but no thanks. I was going to come here anyway. In a vacuum, this is a great hire, as we just said. And I think that the Carolina Panthers are in a really good position right now with that number 9 overall pick, with other picks, with some really good guys that's already on the roster. I mean, think about what he's inheriting. He's going to inherit a defense that's going to be anchored by Brian Burns, J.C. Horn, Derek Brown, and you have Frankie Louvu for at least one more year. We'll see what happens with Shaq Thompson. And then you have other guys that you can probably re-sign and maybe build around or whatever. So it's a great
one of them.
You said what?
Jeremy Chin being one of them.
Jeremy Chin, Jeremy Chin as well. He's going to be there for a while. So that's a great start on defense. So whoever he brings in as defensive coordinator, they're going to walk into a situation where Phil Snow and Steve Wilks and Al Holcomb has already done the job for you. You just need to make sure you don't mess it up. And then on the offensive side, that's where you need a lot of work, but the Panthers did redo their offensive line, so there's not a lot of worry about that. Austin Corbett did tear his ACL in that final game, so you might have some issues at right guard, but there's some depth that's there. You have a pretty good base of what's there, especially if you bring back Bradley Bozeman. Young left tackle in Ike Mekwonu, who just got better and better as the season went along.
There's a lot of building pieces there. There's a lot of building blocks you can work around.
There's a lot that's there, and we didn't even mention DJ Moore. DJ Moore probably doesn't get the praise that he deserves as being one of the best wide receivers in the NFL because he hasn't had a quarterback to match him yet. He basically got a hurt Cam Newton and then a revolving door of other quarterbacks under Matt Rule. So once DJ Moore gets an actual quarterback he can really get some chemistry with, things will be good. So in a vacuum, this is good. Yeah. All right, let's get to the real conversation now.
All right.
This hire shows exactly why Brian Flores and other coaches that joined him in their lawsuit against the NFL, like Steve Wilks, decided to sue the NFL because there are some unfair hiring practices when it comes to black head coaches. There is a different standard placed on black men than what there is on white men. Now, again, I just want to put this out here. I'm saying this as in a defense of black coaches, nothing against Frank Reich. This isn't anti-Frank Reich. I'm excited about the hire. Yeah. I've been saying if it's not Steve Wilks, this is the man that I want as the head coach for the Carolina Panthers. Been saying this.
Yeah, this is different than someone who has zero experience and zero credibility when it comes to being a head coach, getting a job over somebody like Wilks. So, yeah, it's a little bit different in that regard, yes.
Let's go back to this, though. You mentioned play calling ability with other coaches.
Yeah.
And Frank Reich was on the 2017 Philadelphia Eagles team as the offensive coordinator for that team. Who was the play caller for that team?
Was it Doug Peterson?
Yes.
Okay.
Yet nobody ever said, well, Frank Reich doesn't call the plays.
Yeah.
Why does he get a head coaching opportunity? But who's that been used against, though? Who probably should have been hired as a head coach somewhere back in 2020. What name is that?
Eric Bieniemy. Because Andy Reid calls the plays.
Because Andy Reid calls the plays. And Eric Bieniemy is still under Andy Reid right now. Oh, well, he has some issues. He's kind of brash and, he kind of, is in your face and he's a little aggressive. You've seen him on the sideline with Patrick Mahomes. It's football.
Yeah.
Who isn't brash and in your face? Who's this politically correct football coach that's out there that's nice all the time and doesn't yell at you? Hey guys, can you please try to tackle? Who does that? Dennis?
Maybe a third grade Pop Warner coach. Maybe. Maybe.
That's just one example of the standard being different for black men. And then let's go for Steve Wilks' first opportunity as a head coach at the Arizona Cardinals. He had Josh Rosen.
Yeah, who they picked 10th. I think it was 10th, yeah.
He had Josh Rosen, and he inherited Bruce Arians' team and had to keep some of Bruce Arians' staff. Couldn't even really hire his own staff like that. Will Kunkel has a report out that one of the things that impressed the Carolina Panthers about Frank Reich is that he already had done his homework and interviewed people that he's already going to plug in place for his staff beforehand. So it was already, his staff is pretty much already put together according to this report from Will Kunkel from Queen City News. Frank Reich got a chance to pick his own people after getting fired. Steve Wilks got an opportunity as an interim. Took a failing Matt Rule, who was overpaid, took his team and almost made it to the playoffs.
Yeah. With not his own staff or with Matt Rule's staff.
With Matt Rule's staff.
Yeah.
And some people he fired and some people left to go with Matt Rule.
That's the thing that people don't take into consideration is late in the season, that was a pretty skeleton crew because guys were fired by Wilks. And like you mentioned, some guys that Matt Rule took with him to Nebraska that left during the season.
So why is the standard different? What did Steve Wilks have to do to prove that he is capable of being the head coach? Because if Frank Reich starts the season off and they go 2-15 this year, I guarantee you he's not getting fired.
Yeah.
But Steve Wilks took over a mess, went 6-6. If Dante Jackson and if J.C. Horn weren't hurt and they were able to play that last game, Mike Evans doesn't have the crazy game he had. Panthers win that game. If DJ Moore doesn't take his helmet off in Atlanta, Panthers win that game.
Well, Pinheiro had plenty of chances to make kicks and he didn't, so there's that.
And that too. So he lost 2 games that wasn't even because of him. It was just because of either injury or a mistake from a player.
Yeah. But the fact that he got into one game of winning a division. One game of winning a division. Simple as that. And the thing that we have to take into consideration too, I know something that I've brought up, we've discussed as well, is that Steve Wilks wanted to be the head coach of the Panthers. When you have people in your building who are qualified and capable of doing a job, and why don't companies and corporations not elevate those people? The people that want to be there. It's something that always baffles me about it's not just in the NFL, it's across a lot of corporations and businesses and industries in this country.
Yeah.
We fail to elevate the people who want to be there and are qualified to be there. It's interesting because you actually look over in Pittsburgh, that is actually something that they've done. Like Terrell Austin's their defensive coordinator, started off for a long time as their defensive backs coach. Before that, it was Keith Butler, who for 15 or 16 years was the linebackers coach and got elevated after Dick LeBeau. It's amazing how those things are still working and they continue to have a successful organization there in Pittsburgh. It's amazing how it works. When you have people qualified in your building that can do the job, stick with those people. Reward the people who want to be there and are loyal to your organization and your company. That's a thing as well. But yeah, it's just the standard. The standard is completely different. Its standard is completely different. I'm not gonna lie, Chris. If Jeff Saturday gets hired as the head coach,
I'm riding
in the Indianapolis Colts. It's like, dude, it's seriously. It's what are we doing?
Yeah.
It's what are we doing at this point? Because guess what? Similar situation to what Steve Wilks had. Hey, you took over a bad football team. Quarterback situation's not great. Guess what? He wins first game. Congratulations. You beat a terrible Vegas Raiders team. Then you lose everything else the rest of the way out. You lose everything.
Yeah.
But guess what? The AFC South and the NFC South are just staring in the mirror at each other. They both stunk. Like 9-8 won the AFC South. 8-9 won the NFC South. Like, you telling me, Jeff Saturday, I thought you were gonna guy to come in and fix this thing. So but it's just things like that double standard. And the fact that he's still being considered to be a head coach.
But even him being in the building, though, think about the double standard. We talked about that before, where Jim Irsay was just like, well, he's a former player. He gets the culture. He can turn things around, blah, 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 blah. But he was on ESPN a couple days beforehand talking about how bad the team was. He wasn't even in coaching in the NFL. He was on television. But you know who was a former player, who knows what it's like to be on the Colts and play at a high level?
Who's that?
Reggie Wayne, and he was on the staff.
Yeah, he's on the staff.
And he wasn't considered. Why? Why?
I don't know, man.
Oh, no, you know.
Oh, I know. I know exactly the reason why.
I'm waiting for you to say it.
Oh, because he looks like you and doesn't look like me?
No, just say it.
Because he's black?
Okay.
I was like, how do you want me to say this?
No, this is honesty hour right now.
Oh, yeah, as simple as that. And here's the thing as well, is like Jeff Saturday was invited and offered multiple years in a row to be on that staff as an offensive assistant or offensive line coach. And he turned it down because he wanted to be, quote unquote, more time with his family and all that stuff, blah, blah, blah. Oh, but then the head coaching job comes, yeah, sure, well, let's do this thing. Things like that. It's just, owners in the NFL continue to prove once again that they're going to find a way to do whatever it is that they want to do. They like this person.
Yeah.
It's what they're going to find a way to make it happen. Simple as that. There are qualified dudes that are sitting at home, like Jim Caldwell. Jim Caldwell is sitting at home. That dude was successful in Indianapolis.
You read my mind.
That dude was, are you kidding me? That dude got fired for Matt Patricia. That dude got fired for Matt Patricia.
You read my mind.
That guy had multiple winning seasons in Detroit, a terrible franchise. And he had multiple winning seasons, had a winning season, just barely missed the playoffs, but had a winning season, gets canned. And then they bring in Matt Patricia. How'd that work out? Oh, wait, Dan Campbell's the head coach now. But shout out Dan Campbell. I think he's doing an excellent job out there. But seriously, that's the thing. Is that, and he's sitting at home. This guy was a successful offensive coordinator. Like, well, you had Peyton Manning. Guess what? There are teams. Bill O'Brien couldn't win with Deshaun Watson. There are teams that have great quarterbacks that can't win.
Oh, he's preaching now.
Oh, yeah, but here's the thing.
Oh, Dennis is preaching now.
You got Brandon Stanley. You got Brandon Stanley out there in not San Diego, in LA with the Chargers with Justin Herbert. That guy can't get out of his own freaking way. Like, come on. Like, let's be real, people. Let's be honest here. Jim Caldwell is sitting at home and has had success.
Some God he reigns from heaven above with. Sorry, I just had to sing some gospel
because
you're preaching right now.
Nathaniel Hackett. Oh, he was the offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, blah, 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 whatever with the Green Bay Packers. Matt LaFleur. Oh, guess what? Matt LaFleur was the one calling offensive plays out there in Green Bay. Go freaking figure. Goes out to Denver.
And it didn't matter, right? It didn't matter that Matt LaFleur was calling plays because Nathaniel Hackett got the job.
Exactly. He got the job. But guess what? And then he goes out there and he stinks. The guy can't even figure out how to call a timeout. Like, that's the thing, is that there are people, like, this guy clearly doesn't know what he's doing. Now he's the offensive coordinator with the Jets. Have fun. It's just, I don't get it.
Let's talk about David Tepper right now, because.
Oh, by the way, I want to say, my girlfriend and I are going to do a few concerts and stuff here in Raleigh coming up in the spring. Like Lizzo, we're going to go see Stevie Nicks. Actually, two of those concerts are 2 days apart. So shout out David Tepper for bringing concerts and everything to the city of Charlotte and matriculating really across the state of North Carolina.
North Carolina didn't have concerts before David Tepper.
We had no running water, nothing like that.
He discovered North Carolina.
Yeah, restaurants. It's amazing.
Here's the thing, man. Let's talk about David Tepper. He's fired 2 coaches. Mm-hmm. Each time he's fired those coaches, he replaced them mid-season with an interim. Mm-hmm. What do those 2 interims have in common?
I'm not gonna lie. I can't remember who the one that replaced Ron Rivera was.
I'll tell you. It's Perry Fuel. They're both black guys.
Yeah, Perry Fuel. That's
both
right.
Black guys.
Yeah,
so
right.
The black men are good enough to be interims. They're not good enough to be full-time head coaches. Now, Perry Fuel did not do a great job. I mean, the team was sliding anyway, and I would argue that Perry Fuel had a lot less to work with than what Steve Wilks did.
Yeah.
So let's get that out the way. So I'm not saying Perry Fuel deserved to be a head coach. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting how when he introduced Perry Fuel as the interim head coach, David Tepper, he said, I'm not choosing him just because he's an African-American. Go back and look up the quote. Because I remember listening to that like, huh? Why'd you have to say that? Because who gets chosen in the NFL to be a coach just because you're black? You feel me?
Yeah.
So ever since that moment, I've been kind of looking at David Tepper with the side eye. Like, what's he about to do? And it makes me wonder, from that moment on, are you overthinking the black part?
Yeah.
And thinking that people are going to come down on you because you just hired a black person? What world is that we live in, right? And I know that happens to some people, right? Mm-hmm. There's this myth that because, laws have been passed to make things equal, you have to equally consider everybody, that because a black person is chosen over somebody else, they're getting special treatment. No, you just have to actually compete with other people now.
Yeah.
Instead of just other white people. So that was always kind of weird to me. And then you brought up Jim Caldwell, who obviously was just to satisfy the Rooney Rule.
Yeah.
Like, what a slap in the face to a really good football coach.
Yeah.
Who did his thing at Wake Forest as a head coach, came in the NFL, came up under Tony Dungy, did his thing as a offensive coordinator with the Indianapolis Colts, as you mentioned before, working with Peyton Manning. Also, like, first off, the difference between Dan Campbell and Jim Caldwell is the fact that Jim Caldwell did not have a really good GM to work with. Mm-hmm. Who was doing amazing things and getting him talent. Dan Campbell is actually getting talent, which is good, and he's doing a great job. And Ben Johnson's doing a great job with them. Cool, that's what's up.
Yeah.
Jim Caldwell wasn't getting help from the front office like that, and he still was able to do what he did with the Detroit Lions, and it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough, and now he's been sitting at home for the last 4 or 5 years. Waiting to coach something.
Yeah.
That man should at least be somebody's quarterback coach.
At minimum.
Because he's a great football mind. Even in college, like, I mean, maybe people have picked up the phone, but I'm also wondering, like, did NC State not pick up the phone when you had some quarterback issues this past year? Did Carolina not pick up the phone? Did Duke not pick up the phone? At minimum, did Winston-Salem State pick up the phone? Like, he lives in Winston-Salem.
Yeah.
So, I feel bad for Jim Caldwell because he was obviously just there to satisfy the Rooney Rule. And then if you go back to a report from Sheena Quick and also that report that I mentioned earlier from Will Kunkel, it feels as if David Tepper pretty much knew back on the 16th when he had his first interview with Frank Reich, it was going to be Frank Reich. Mm-hmm. And that everybody else was like, let me just go out and see everybody else. And out of courtesy, let me bring in Steve Wilks. Let me give him one more shot just to see.
Sure.
And sounds good, Steve. Sounds good, Steve. Well, thank you so much for your service, man. We're going to choose Frank Reich. Mm-hmm. Again, I'm happy with the hire in the vacuum, but I feel horrible for Steve Wilks because this man has been dealt a horrible hand. What else was he supposed to do? What else could he have done?
Yeah. Not much.
Again, if Frank Reich goes 2-15 this season, he's still going to come back in 2024.
Yeah.
Steve Wilks just went 6-6 with the team that was supposedly tanking, and they traded away his best player. Mm-hmm. What else is he supposed to do? The standard is different for black coaches.
Standard's different. Simple as that. I guarantee you, like I said, these owners in the NFL, they know what they want. They'll find whatever way they can to go get it. Simple as that.
And with David Tepper coming from the Pittsburgh franchise, it to me it's disappointing.
Yeah.
From the franchise that is responsible for the Rooney Rule, which is the only thing we have in place to guarantee that there's even a fair shot for black coaches. And he's so worried about hiring people just because they're an African American. Mm-hmm. It's just weird to me.
You know, it's amazing. Tepper coming from Pittsburgh, he's now has as many head coaches, Rivera, Matt Rule, and now Frank Reich, 3 that Pittsburgh has had since the mid-60s. Just saying.
You know, hey, whatever floats it. Getting off of that subject. Oh, really quick, let's read what Steve Wilks put out. He put out a statement this morning.
Oh, he did? Okay, I haven't seen this.
And he said, "The sun rose this morning, and by the grace of God, so did I. I'm disappointed, but not defeated. Many people aren't built for this, but I know that what it means to persevere and see it through. It was an honor for me to coach those men in the Carolina Panthers locker room as the interim head coach. Players, coaches, and staff, thank you for your hard work and dedication. I took pride in representing Charlotte, a great city that I love so much. Thank you to my family, friends, and the community for your overwhelming support. I do wish Frank Reich all the best, and I will always be a fan of the Carolina Panthers football team. Hashtag keep pounding. Psalms 37, 23, and 24. What a classy guy.
Yeah.
Deserves to be somebody's head coach.
Oh, yeah. 100%. I'm a huge fan of his. I will root for him wherever he goes. Apparently, there are some teams out there that want to bring him in onto their staff. I know the Falcons apparently has been floating around and to bring him on the staff potentially as a defensive coordinator or something along those lines. The guy deserves to be a coach in the NFL in some way, shape, or form at least. I think he should be a head coach? Yes, absolutely. But that guy should be on a staff somewhere.
But Frank Reich, maybe you could turn it around for us with all the offense you're bringing.
Exactly. Bring it all offense. Well, you know what? Bring that offense on that subscribe and the like button. Elbow drop that thing. Subscribe to us. We can check out all the videos that we have here on the Culture State playlist right here on 99.9 The Fan's YouTube page. Watch all the stuff that Chris and I are putting out. Oh, by the way, little programming update. Culture State Saturdays are coming back.
We back, baby.
Starting in March, first weekend of March, we're going to take you all the way from the second Duke-UNC Battle of the Blues matchup in Chapel Hill that Saturday all the way through Final Four weekend. Saturdays 10 to noon right here on The Fan, WRLSportsFan.com. You can listen to us as well. Check it out. We're back.
Peace. Word. All right, I got to run. My daughter has like